In the quiet village of Tono, there was a small, cozy salon owned by a mysterious woman named Yasha. Her salon was the only one in the village, and people came from far and wide to get their hair done by her. But there was one strange rule in Yasha's salon: no mirrors were allowed. Not a single mirror could be found anywhere inside, and no one was allowed to bring one in. The villagers didn't mind the rule, they respected Yasha and trusted her skills. But there was one person who couldn't resist the urge to find out why Yasha had such a peculiar rule. This person was a young girl named Zuri. She had always been curious, never shying away from a mystery. Zuri had heard whispers about Yasha's salon and the strange rule, and she decided that she had to uncover the truth. One sunny afternoon, Zuri walked into Yasha's salon, her heart pounding with excitement and a little fear. Yasha greeted her with a warm smile, her dark eyes twinkling as if she knew Zuri's thoughts. "What can I do for you today, Zuri?" Yasha asked, her voice smooth like honey. "I want a new hairstyle," Zuri replied, trying to sound casual, but her eyes were scanning the room for any sign of a mirror. Yasha nodded and gestured for Zuri to sit down. As Yasha began to work on Zuri's hair, the young girl couldn't help but ask, "Yasha, why don't you have any mirrors in your salon? And the importance for seeing how the hair looks?" Yasha's hands paused for a moment, and she looked into Zuri's eyes with a serious expression. "Mirrors can show more than just your reflection, Zuri. Sometimes, they reveal things that are better left unseen." Zuri shivered at Yasha's words but didn't let it deter her. She was more determined than ever to uncover the secret behind the mirrors. After her hair was done, Zuri thanked Yasha and left the salon, but her mind was already racing with plans. Over the next few days, Zuri began to ask around the village about Yasha and her strange rule. Most of the villagers shrugged off her questions, saying that Yasha was a good woman who did excellent work. But one elderly woman, Nola, seemed more willing to talk. Nola told Zuri that there was a dark tale tied to Yasha's family, a story that had been passed down through generations. Yasha's family was once cursed, Nola whispered, her voice trembling with fear. It's said that an evil spirit, angry and vengeful, was bound to a mirror by Yasha's ancestors. The curse was so powerful that it passed down through the family, affecting anyone who looked into a mirror in that house. Zuri's heart raced. This was the clue she had been looking for. If there was indeed a curse, then Yasha's rule made sense. But Zuri couldn't just leave it at that, she had to know more. She decided to visit Yasha again, but this time, she would bring a small mirror hidden in her pocket. The next day, Zuri returned to Yasha's salon. Yasha greeted her warmly again, but there was a hint of caution in her eyes as if she sensed something was different. Zuri chatted with Yasha, trying to distract her as she slowly reached into her pocket to pull out the mirror. As soon as Zuri took out the mirror and held it up, the atmosphere in the salon changed. The air grew cold, and a dark shadow seemed to fall over the room. Yasha gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "No, Zuri. Put it away," she cried, but it was too late. In the reflection of the mirror, Zuri saw something that made her blood run cold. A twisted, malevolent face stared back at her, its eyes burning with hatred. The mirror trembled in her hand, and she felt a force trying to pull her into its depths. Yasha grabbed the mirror from Zuri and smashed it on the floor. The room was plunged into darkness, and the only sound was the shattering of glass. When the light returned, Zuri found herself lying on the floor, trembling and gasping for breath. Yasha was kneeling beside her, her face pale and her hands shaking. "I warned you, Zuri," Yasha said softly, helping the girl to her feet. "The spirit in the mirror is real. It's been bound to our family for generations, and I've spent my life trying to protect others from it." Zuri was filled with guilt and fear. She had been foolish to ignore Yasha's warning, and now she had seen the terrifying truth with her own eyes. But even though she was scared, Zuri was also more determined than ever to help Yasha break the curse. "I'm sorry, Yasha," Zuri whispered. "But I want to help you. We need to find a way to free your family from this curse." Yasha looked at Zuri with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "It won't be easy, Zuri. The curse is old and powerful, and many have tried to break it before. But if you're truly willing to help, then I'll show you what we need to do." And so began Zuri's journey into the dark history of Yasha's family and the terrifying power of the curse mirror. Together, they would face ancient spirits, unravel long-hidden secrets, and confront the evil that had haunted Yasha's family for generations. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but Zuri knew that she had to see it through. She had to help Yasha break the curse and restore peace to the village of Tono. Little did she know, the true horrors were yet to come, and the hair of the devil would reveal its full, terrifying power before the end. Zuri's mind raced as she left Yasha's salon. The weight of what she had seen and learned was heavy on her heart, but she couldn't let fear stop her. The image of the twisted, evil face in the mirror haunted her thoughts, and she knew that breaking the curse was the only way to free Yasha and her family from its grip. The next morning, Zuri sought out Nola again. The old woman had been the only person willing to talk about the curse, and Zuri hoped she could offer more insight. Nola was sitting outside her small hut, humming a quiet tune as she wove a basket. When she saw Zuri approach, her eyes narrowed with concern. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Nola asked softly, as if she already knew the answer. Zuri nodded, feeling a chill run down her spine. "I saw the spirit in the mirror. It was horrible, Nola. But I want to help Yasha break the curse. Do you know how we can do that?" Nola sighed deeply and set her basket aside. "Child, this curse is ancient. It was cast by a powerful sorcerer many, many years ago. Yasha's ancestor, a woman named Akua, was the one who angered the sorcerer. She was a proud woman, known for her beauty, and she refused to marry him. In his rage, the sorcerer cursed her and her descendants, binding the evil spirit to a mirror that would haunt them forever." Zuri's heart ached as she imagined the generations of Yasha's family suffering under the curse. "But there must be a way to break it," she insisted. "There has to be something we can do." "There is a way," Nola admitted, her voice heavy with the weight of the truth. "But it is dangerous. To break the curse, you must perform a ritual to summon the spirit out of the mirror. Then, you must trap it in an object that is pure and untainted by evil. But be warned, child, the spirit will not go willingly. It will fight with all its might, and you must be strong enough to resist its power." Zuri felt a surge of determination. She knew the risks were great, but she couldn't back down now. "What do I need for the ritual?" she asked, her voice firm. Nola gave her a long, searching look before nodding slowly. "You will need a special herb called Oloran's Bane. It grows deep in the forest, near the old shrine of the gods. It is a rare and sacred plant, known for its power to cleanse and protect. You will also need a vessel made of pure gold to contain the spirit once it is drawn out. Gold is the only metal strong enough to hold such a powerful force." Zuri thanked Nola and set off immediately. The journey to the old shrine was long and treacherous, but Zuri was determined. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller and the air colder, but she pressed on, guided by the knowledge that Yasha's fate depended on her success. After hours of walking, Zuri finally reached the shrine. It was an ancient structure, crumbling and overgrown with vines, but there was a sense of power and reverence in the air. Zuri knelt down to search for the herb, her heart pounding with anticipation. After a few tense moments, she spotted the bright green leaves of Oloran's Bane growing near the base of the shrine. Carefully, she plucked a few sprigs, making sure to leave some behind so the plant could continue to grow. With the herb in hand, Zuri made her way back to the village, her mind focused on the task ahead. She would need to find a gold vessel to trap the spirit, and she had a feeling that Yasha might have something that could work. As she approached Yasha's salon, Zuri felt a mix of fear and hope. She knew the ritual would be dangerous, but she also knew that it was the only way to free Yasha and her family from the curse. When Zuri entered the salon, Yasha was waiting for her. The older woman's face was pale, and there was a look of resignation in her eyes. "You went to Nola, didn't you?" Yasha asked quietly. "Yes," Zuri replied, holding up the Oloran's bane. "I'm going to help you, Yasha. We're going to break this curse together." Yasha's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the brave young girl standing before her. "Zuri, you don't have to do this. The curse is my burden, not yours." "No," Zuri said firmly. "It's not just your burden anymore. We're in this together, Yasha. I've already come this far, and I'm not going to stop now." Yasha nodded, wiping away her tears. "Then let's do this. I have a gold pendant that belonged to my grandmother. It's pure gold and has been passed down through our family for generations. It might be strong enough to hold the spirit." Zuri smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. "It will be strong enough. We'll make sure of it." That evening, as the sun set over the village of Tono, Zuri and Yasha prepared for the ritual. They gathered the Oloran's bane, the gold pendant, and a bowl of water blessed by Nola. The air was thick with tension as they began the ritual, chanting the ancient words that Nola had taught them. As they chanted, the air in the salon grew colder, and a dark shadow began to form in the corner of the room. The spirit was awakening, and it was angry. Zuri's heart raced as the shadow grew larger, taking on the shape of the twisted face she had seen in the mirror. The spirit hissed and snarled, its eyes burning with fury as it fought against the power of the ritual. But Zuri and Yasha didn't falter. They continued to chant, their voices growing louder and stronger. The Oloran's bane began to glow with a soft, green light, and the spirit recoiled, its form flickering and weakening. With a final, defiant scream, the spirit was drawn out of the shadow and into the pendant, which glowed brightly as it absorbed the dark energy. When the light faded, the salon was silent. The air was warm again, and the oppressive feeling of fear was gone. Zuri and Yasha stood together, their hands trembling as they looked at the pendant. It was heavy now, filled with the trapped spirit, but it no longer felt threatening. Zuri smiled weakly, relief washing over her. "We did it, Yasha. The curse is broken." Yasha nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and hope. "Yes, Zuri. You've done more for me and my family than I could ever repay. Thank you." But as the two stood there, a faint whisper echoed through the salon, barely audible but unmistakable. "This isn't over," the voice hissed. Zuri and Yasha froze, their blood turning to ice. The spirit was still there, trapped but not defeated. And deep down, they both knew that the battle was far from over. The heir of the devil had more secrets to reveal, and the true test of their courage was yet to come. The whisper lingered in the air, sending chills down Zuri's spine. She and Yasha exchanged a glance, both realizing that while they had managed to trap the spirit, it wasn't truly defeated. The pendant, now heavy with the captured spirit, seemed to pulse with a dark energy. Zuri's determination grew stronger. If the spirit wasn't gone, she had to find a way to banish it for good. "We can't stop now, Yasha," Zuri said, her voice trembling slightly but filled with resolve. "The spirit is still trapped, but it's not gone. We need to find a way to end this once and for all." Yasha nodded, her face pale but resolute. "You're right, Zuri. We've come this far. There must be something more we can do." They both knew that Nola would be their best source of guidance. The elderly woman had already proven to be a well of knowledge about the curse, and if anyone knew how to banish the spirit permanently, it would be her. Without wasting any time, they wrapped the pendant in a piece of cloth to contain its dark energy and hurried to Nola's hut. When they arrived, they found Nola sitting quietly outside, as if she had been expecting them. Her eyes were grave as she looked at the pendant they held. "I felt it," Nola said softly, her voice tinged with sorrow. "The spirit is trapped, but it's still powerful. You've done well to contain it, but the hardest part is yet to come." Zuri and Yasha sat down beside Nola, eager to hear what needed to be done. "How do we banish it, Nola?" Yasha asked. "We've trapped it, but it's still whispering. It said, 'This isn't over.'" Nola sighed, her gaze distant as she recalled ancient stories and wisdom passed down through generations. "To banish a spirit as strong as this one, you must destroy the object it's bound to. But it's not as simple as smashing the pendant. The spirit's energy will simply escape and find another host, perhaps something even more dangerous. No, you must destroy it in a way that leaves no trace, no fragments for the spirit to cling to." Zuri frowned, trying to understand. "How can we destroy the pendant so completely? It's made of gold, and fire alone won't do it." Nola nodded. "You're right. You must take the pendant to the sacred river that flows near the village of Imoni. The river is said to be blessed by the spirits of the ancestors, and its waters have the power to purify and dissolve even the darkest of curses. But be warned, the journey to Imoni is long and perilous. The spirit will fight you every step of the way, trying to escape before you reach the river." Yasha and Zuri exchanged a determined look. They knew the journey would be dangerous, but they had no other choice. The only way to protect their village, and possibly others, from the cursed spirit was to destroy it once and for all. "Thank you, Nola," Zuri said, her voice filled with gratitude. "We'll leave at first light tomorrow." That night, Zuri and Yasha prepared for the journey. They packed provisions, blankets, and anything they might need for the long trek. Yasha's heart was heavy as she thought about the challenges ahead, but she drew strength from Zuri's unwavering resolve. The young girl had proven to be braver than anyone she had ever known, and Yasha was determined to see this through with her. As dawn broke, Zuri and Yasha set out on the path toward Imoni. The village was far, nestled deep in the mountains, and the journey would take several days. The pendant, now securely wrapped in layers of cloth, felt heavier with each step they took. The road was rough, and the forest surrounding them seemed to grow darker as they traveled farther from home. The first day passed without incident, but by nightfall, they began to feel the spirit's presence more acutely. The air grew cold and still, and strange noises echoed through the trees, whispers that made their skin crawl. As they set up camp for the night, Yasha noticed that the pendant was starting to emit a faint, eerie glow from within its wrappings. "Zuri, do you see that?" Yasha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zuri nodded, her eyes wide with alarm. "It's trying to escape. We need to be careful. Let's keep the pendant close and stay awake tonight. We can't let our guard down." The night was long and filled with tension. Zuri and Yasha sat by the fire, keeping the pendant between them as they listened to the rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. Every now and then, they would hear a faint whisper or feel a cold gust of wind, as if the spirit was testing the boundaries of its prison. By morning, they were exhausted but determined to keep going. The road ahead was treacherous, winding through steep hills and thick forest. As they continued their journey, the landscape became more rugged, and the paths less defined. But Zuri and Yasha pressed on, knowing they had no choice. On the third day, as they neared the foot of the mountains, the spirit's presence grew stronger. The pendant pulsed with dark energy, and the whispers became louder, more insistent. It was clear that the spirit was becoming desperate, knowing that its end was near. Suddenly, as they crossed a narrow bridge over a deep ravine, the ground beneath them began to shake. Rocks tumbled down the mountainside, and the bridge swayed dangerously. Zuri clutched the pendant tightly, realizing that the spirit was using its last reserves of power to stop them. "We have to keep moving," Yasha shouted over the roar of the collapsing rocks. "Don't let it stop us." But just as they reached the other side of the bridge, a massive boulder came crashing down, blocking their path. The spirit's voice echoed through the air, filled with rage and fear. "You will never destroy me. I will find another host, another way to survive." Zuri felt a surge of defiance rise within her. "You won't stop us," she shouted back, her voice filled with determination. "We will see this through to the end." With Yasha's help, Zuri began to climb over the boulder, carefully holding the pendant. It was a grueling effort, but eventually, they made it to the other side. The path ahead was clear, and in the distance, they could hear the faint sound of rushing water. The sacred river was close. As they approached the riverbank, Zuri could feel the spirit's desperation growing. The pendant was glowing brightly now, almost too hot to touch. But Zuri knew they had to finish what they started. She and Yasha stood at the edge of the river, the water flowing swiftly and brightly, as if it too sensed the significance of the moment. "Now, Zuri," Yasha said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's time to end this." Zuri took a deep breath, holding the pendant over the water. For a moment, she hesitated, feeling the weight of the centuries-old curse and the lives it had affected. But then, with a final burst of courage, she released the pendant into the river. The instant the pendant touched the water, there was a blinding flash of light. The spirit let out a terrible scream, its voice filled with anguish as it was dissolved by the sacred waters. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was almost unbearable, and then, just as suddenly, it vanished. The river returned to its normal flow, calm and peaceful as if nothing had happened. Zuri and Yasha stood in stunned silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. The pendant was gone, the spirit finally banished for good. The air around them felt lighter, the oppressive weight of the curse lifted at last. Tears of relief and exhaustion streamed down Yasha's face. "It's over, Zuri. The curse is finally over." Zuri nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. They had done it. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But as they turned to leave the riverbank, Zuri couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within her. The battle with the spirit had left its mark, and though the curse was broken, a new journey was just beginning, a journey that would lead Zuri and Yasha into even deeper mysteries and challenges neither of them could yet foresee.